Right. So welcome to the new series, Life Interrupted. I'm extremely excited to bring this to you. We're going to be doing this 2 times a week. This is basically, right, the show, the space, the opportunity to really talk about how do we navigate these crazy times, right, that we're in right now. I really wanted to give parents an opportunity to get some advice, get some guidance, get some support on all the things that are going on, right? So helpful tips to manage just the complicatedness of everything going on right now. Support for yourself, but also to help your kids through navigating this and what this is like for them. And if there's any topics, and we're starting off, any topics that you feel like you would love for me to address on this show, then please email me, message me, reach out. If you are new to who I am, so my name is Rory Geller Mohammed. I am a therapist, I'm a parent coach, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the founder of the organization You Power Change. And I'm the admin of this group that we're in right now. I'm also going to be posting this on YouTube, so it'll be accessible to everybody. I really want this just to kind of be the space to support, right, of support. I'm also a mom. I have 2 young kids. I have a 2-year-old, I have a 4-year-old. I'm a wife. I live in Florida right now. I've lived most of my life. I grew up in New York and have lived there for most of my life. So when we're going to dig into this episode, the way I wanted to do it is I want to make sure we touched on multiple areas. So we're going to start with support for parents, right? And what that looks like, ways that we can self-care, take care of ourselves so that we're able to function in a way that is supportive for our kids. Then we're going to talk a little bit about ways to support our kids. And then we're also going to talk about equity, inclusion, social change, and what this kind of means with all of this going on, right? The work maybe we were doing before that might have to shift, just all of that stuff. So we're going to be doing that each time, but we're going to start with support for adults. I am going back and forth between the live thing and the live version and my notes. So if you do have questions, need me to clarify anything, please reach out. Post it. I'm definitely following along in there, and I'll be checking in and out of the Facebook Live. And I should be able to see it coming up. All right. I'm going to go to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's see. All right. Just make sure I can see if anybody is posting in here. Okay. Yes. Okay. So starting off with support for parents, right? One of the topics when I asked, what is stuff that people need help on, right? What would be most helpful for parents to hear about right now, to learn about right now, to get guidance on right now? And one of the comments was how to stay sane when there's 0 breaks, right? Before we were traveling, maybe we were traveling to work or we were traveling to home. Sometimes work was actually a break, right, from kids sometimes. We had that often even just the commute could be like a little bit of a break because we're not actually with, dropping off at school or whatever it is. And now it just feels like it's overlapping, right? And it's never ending, right? We never get that break. And specifically also, if there is one adult in the household, right? If it's not a 2-parent household, then it's a 1-parent household, what does that mean? And what are sort of the recommendations? How do we kind of get through, right? What does this look like? How do we figure out the schedule? So the first thing that I think is really important with this is the idea that we need to accept that things are going to be different for a little while, right? So we need to allow ourselves the space to just kind of accept that it's not how it was before. And so I'm going to have to move things around, shift things around, try my best to change things around. And also I might have to grieve that I have less time than I did before. And it felt like before I had no time and now I really have no time. So what does that mean? The other thing I think is important to recognize when we're thinking about that is this isn't typically, right, the way that we should be doing things, right? It's not healthy for us to typically just be the one parent that the kids always rely on, right? Typically, we might have grandparents or friends or a community of people that we rely on, right? The village, right? It takes a village to raise kids, right? That idea of that. And now we don't have access to that, the physical access, right, to that village. Yes, we're able to do Zoom and all of that, but we don't have the physical access that can give us some of maybe those breaks or that in between time. We don't have sort of those opportunities. So what do we do? I think outside of being able to accept that, I think we really need to pay attention to our schedule, like the schedule that we have for work, the schedule that we have with our kids. We really, and the way that we run things in our households, we really need to be flexible with. So whatever expectations we have before, I know a lot of people that I speak with have talked a lot about the expectations, whether it's like making sure how did we, maybe like a cleaning, right? Maybe we were constantly, we do laundry a certain amount of times. Say we did cleaning a certain amount of times, right? Whatever that looked like that we had going before, whatever that typical routine we had, we may have to break out of that typical routine. In addition, like with work, right? If your job, I mean, some jobs you might not be able to flex it, right? Some jobs you might have meetings all day long that you have to show up live. If there are times that you don't have to show up live, how do you navigate those times that maybe can you keep your child occupied, tire them out in the morning, and maybe do some of your meetings in the afternoon when they're maybe watching TV on the tablet or the iPad or whatever it is? Can you maybe navigate that? Can you change their bedtime routine in the schedule so maybe you can have more time in the evening? Is that a possibility? Or change it the opposite way, where maybe you're keeping them up later and they're sleeping later, so maybe you have more time in the morning. How do you kind of shift what is going on so that it can work for you? Because you do need to take care of yourself. The other thing I want to mention is we need to recognize that it's not a sprint, right? It's not like, and I think so many of us wish it was, right? It's just going to be these 6 weeks and we're going to get through it. It's going to be these 10 weeks and we're just going to get through it. Like we don't know how long this is going to be. And I think that's one of the things that really makes it hard when we're trying to figure out, well, like, how long do I have to go on? How long do I have to do this for? So as part of it just is accepting the uncertainty with it and trying to say, what do I have control over right now? How can I make this function for me right now? And I'm not saying that these things are easy. This is very, very hard. And accept, yes, it's hard, but also that you can do hard things. And remind yourself of all the other really, really hard stuff that you have had to do in your life and how you've done that and how you've overcome that. And those are the things, right, that you're able to kind of say, remind yourself, I'm going to figure this out. I think it's important to, when we think about just adults and grown-ups and parents, right, how do we take care of that self-care, especially if you're in a one-parent household? It's important, I think, to schedule in time so that you're still interacting with other adults. So maybe schedule a coffee chat with a friend online, right? Maybe schedule sort of a once a week meeting that you're going to hang out with a friend after the kids go to bed. If it's even for half, or maybe not online, or maybe it's not a Zoom thing, maybe it's just a phone call, right? That you're going to take that time because you're going to need that adult interaction. So make sure you're putting some adult interaction into your life. The other thing I think is really important is making sure to kind of get some time outside every day, even if it's cold. I know not everybody lives in warm places. And not everybody also lives right in a way that they're able to go outside, right? I'm not saying walk around and maybe we can't do that, but even if you're able to just step right out your door, 5 minutes, get some fresh air, 5 minutes, make sure you're kind of doing that. If you're maybe like in an apartment building and you're not able to do that, right? Let's say it's not in your capacity, you're trying to avoid the halls, all of that stuff. Even if you can sit by a window, like open up a window, even if it's cold, just get fresh air for like 5 minutes, right? We just kind of need that, I think, to connect us with the outside, to connect us with sort of to kind of take us out of the typical environment, right, that we're in. Okay. So those are just some ideas, right? When we're thinking about that there isn't another adult in the household and it is a one-parent household, that it's important to try to schedule time that you have connection with friends, um, adult interaction, schedule time to take 5 or 10 minutes for yourself in addition to work, right? If that means that your child is watching the tablet longer or watching TV longer, you may have to hold off so that TV is more of a reward. And so you're able to take that time. If it means that, like, in the shower, you're taking an extra 5 minutes in the shower for yourself, or maybe you're taking 2 showers, right? Whatever it is, to kind of, you need to have that time. Even, I don't know, it could be changing the bedtime routine as well, right? So there's just some different ideas. Now I want to go into, right, that's sort of support for parents. The next is support for kids. There are, of course, many, many different things and ways that we can support our kids. The number one thing is making sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we are able to take care of our kids, right? That's really important. The next thing is, I had posted this, and I'll post it again so that you guys can connect with it. One thing for younger kids, right? Just like a quick, I know a lot of people may have seen this, but those of you who maybe didn't, Sesame Street or Elmo, they did an Elmo play date where they did a short, I guess a 30-minute episode where Elmo was doing like a Zoom call, right, with his friends and having like a play date, an online play date with his friends. So it's great for kids, I think, to see that. It normalizes sort of the life we're going through now, what we're doing. It helps them see characters they know doing this. And it talks about a lot of different things. I'll post the link, but if you go PBS Kids, it's on there, just to have access to it. With older kids, it's important that we talk about that this is hard. It's important that we help them to acknowledge their feelings, but also acknowledge that things are different now, right? Our schedule is different. We have to be flexible, different things are changing, all of that. Give them the space to ask questions. They may not have any, but let them know, remind them again, especially like for teenagers or preteens, right? Like, whatever questions, like, I know there's a lot going on. Let me know if I can be, what you need from me, how maybe I can help. I think also helping them to adjust also to the new expectations and reminding them that it's okay to have sort of a mix of feelings, right? A mix of emotions coming up with this, that it's okay for them to be sad that they miss their friends, and helping them connect, right? The same like we would do. And then, okay, this one is really with this school stuff, right? So when we think about the homeschooling or the online learning or the distance learning or whatever it is that your child's school has now implemented, I think it's really important to take away the pressure that kids typically feel that is there when they are in school, right? It's important to them for them to know that this is different. It's important that they recognize that mental health is the number one priority and school comes underneath that, right? Yes, school is very important, but if their mental health and their wellness is not there, it doesn't matter so much, right? Like, they won't be able to do anything if they're not feeling emotionally well. All right. So those are just some things with kids, right? Just some ideas, having those conversations with kids, reminders, focusing again on feelings and that it's a multitude of feelings is normal, opening up the conversation for feelings, and lowering the expectations around school stuff. And a lot of times it may not be something that they automatically realize because they're so used to having the expectations that they have for school. And then our third sort of segment or part for today is around equity, inclusion, social change, all the things that those of you who have kept up with me kind of know that I bring into all aspects of my work, or I do my best and try to bring it in and try to make sure that there's a focus on that and what this looks like in our parenting. So before, we talked a lot about having conversations with the school, having conversations with our kids, having conversations at different aspects in our community, different institutions that we're part of around these topics. So right now, what I want to talk about is that because it can feel very overwhelming, right? we may not know where to start these conversations. At least that's how I felt, right? I know I felt like I'm aware of all of the injustices and the disparities that are taking place. And how do I address this both with, like, age appropriately, like with my kids right now? And how do I even, it's not really find time, right? But find like the mental capacity to be able to have some of these harder conversations and what that looks like. And so what I want to talk about is that this actually might be the most opportune time to do that. One of the things that's happening now is we're seeing so much more of our kids than we usually get to see, right? So we're able to see their behaviors around like everything, right? This is not that they would act like this in school, right? How they are at home, but we're just able to see so much more of them than we typically see. Yes, maybe summer vacations, like obviously they're home or whatever, but excuse me for a second. Okay, let's take a drink. We're able to, I think, pay more attention in a way, right? Because I feel like we're kind of heightened a little bit more to everything. Pay more attention to what they're recognizing, what's going on for them, what's going on for them in their world. And so one of the things that stood out for me when I was thinking, well, how do I address this? How do I really was feeling like over a few weeks ago, and not even a few weeks, probably like in the last week, right? Kind of like really overwhelmed of like, how do I continue the conversations that I was having before, trying to have before with my kids, working on with my kids now, and where do I kind of put all this sort of energy? And so one of the things that I actually noticed, being that my children now are home all the time, was that my son started talking about and using, he had picked up the word, I guess at school, because it's not like where else would he go that I wouldn't be, right? Picked up the word, like the word jail, I guess at school and like through playing or what, I don't know. I mean, I asked him, but I'm not really getting a response on it. And my son's 4, for those of you, I know I mentioned it earlier. And so he had picked up, like when he would kind of play, oh, like whatever toys oh, they were bad, like they're going to jail, or they're, even there was a thing, and he got scared, oh, was someone going to take him to jail when he did something wrong? So it was this conversation, and I started telling him, like, I don't want to not use that word, like I don't know that he knows what is that. And just he said, I wasn't able to get that much out of it. And we talked about what it meant and why, like, people that go to jail, why it's really sad, right? And what it means that, people aren't around their families, they miss their families a lot, right? People, and kind of like talking about sort of the idea of it. So I know even now, right, like here I'm struggling with kind of describing, because it was over a few different conversations, of kind of how to describe it. So for me, it was like, I don't know how to talk about the injustice of what incarceration means, right? And the huge thing of what this is and the system that we have that doesn't work. We would talk about, right, if somebody makes a mistake and how do we repair the harm, right? So that's like a restorative justice. How do we tell, like, what that means, like in our life? And so it was interesting because I was kind of stuck on it. I spoke to a friend recently who had a really good way of explaining it, that I was thinking, how did she describe it to her child, who's around the same age as my son? And she was saying, she said, well, jail is something that we don't believe in, right? And kind of taking it from there, right? So that really simplifies it. So it's something that exists, that's unfair, that can be harmful. We don't believe in it because we believe in restorative justice, or we believe in these other things, and we believe in preventive, all of these other things. So it was just an interesting way of, how do you kind of take this concept, and it's still, right, it's going to be a continuing conversation, though my husband he has used kind of time, he switched it from jail to timeout a little bit, but doesn't use it as frequently. And it's still something, obviously, it's going to be a long learning process, right? What that means, and then how do we do the work to dismantle that injustice and what that looks like. So I just wanted to give an example of how we may pick up on things that we weren't picking up before. Because I know when he was in school before, I wasn't, at home, maybe I heard it once or something like that. It wasn't something that I was really coming out. And then when he was home more, he started using it more. And so I was starting to pick up. And so you might pick up on things just because your kids are home more. you might start recognizing things that are going on. And how do you kind of bring that conversation around equity and diversity and inclusion into your parenting conversations and into all of those things, when it's sort of these huge things, right, that even as adults we don't know how to navigate a lot of the time, how to talk about. So how do we make it developmentally appropriate so that they can understand it, right? So those are the three main areas that I wanted to kind of touch on today, right? Before we close, I did want to just recap everything so you guys have like next steps and what you might be able to take away. So for parents, I think it's important that you can think of one thing you could do for yourself to get through this, right? So what is one thing? Think about that. What is one thing you can help your kids to get through this, right? And that focuses sort of on whatever that means for you. And the other part is look for opportunities to have the conversations about equity, inclusion, social change with your child. Look for those opportunities to be able to do that. So those are 3 steps that you can take and take away kind of from this conversation. I also wanted to mention that I know now is a really tough time for everybody. I do hope everybody is doing as well as possible, healthy, getting by. I want to say for anyone that is looking for support on this topic, similar topics, I do have a few spots available for individual coaching where we work one-on-one together and we create a customized plan for you and your family. So if this is something that you are interested in and do would want to work on together, reach out, let me know. I am scheduling time to chat with anybody that is interested. I have a few spots available now. So I do hope you will join us again. I'm going to be doing this at least right now. We have 8 weeks on the calendar. It's going to be every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time and every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. If there are any topics you want me to cover on here, if you have any questions you want me to address, feel free to message me. Feel free to email me, Rory, RORRI, @upowerchange.com. And I hope everybody has a wonderful night. Take care.